My name is Elena Barker. I'm 29 years old, and for 5 months my life had a secret soundtrack. It wasn't music in the traditional sense. It was the hum of my computer monitor blending with the rhythmic tapping of his keyboard 2 desks away. It was the almost synchronized sigh we'd let out whenever our manager, Ted, launched into another endless Monday meeting. And it was the ping of a private chat window that would light up my screen with a message that had nothing to do with quarterly reports. Brian Coffey. My treat if you promise not to steal my straw again. Me, no promises, but meet me by the elevator in 5. That was our rhythm, playful, hidden, effortless. To everyone else at Nexitech, we were just Elena and Brian, diligent analysts, who exchanged polite smiles and project updates. But beneath the gray lighting and the polite small talk was something alive, something that hummed quietly just for us. I had never been the type to enjoy the spotlight. My world was measured in formulas and forecasts, in things that could be proven. Brian, on the other hand, was a walking contradiction, handsome, in an unbothered way, charming enough to make anyone laugh, but never long enough to seem interested. Until me. The first time he brushed against my hand while passing me a printed report, I thought it was an accident. The second time, I wasn't so sure. By the third, I found myself anticipating it, his touch like a spark I pretended not to feel. Our secret became a game we both played too well. When our eyes met across the conference table, the fluorescent light might as well have dimmed. I'd speak and he'd smile at something I said just a fraction too long. No one else noticed, but I felt it in the pulse of every ordinary day. There's something addictive about being someone's secret. It makes you feel chosen, special, protected from the noise of the world. But secrets, I would later learn, have expiration dates. And the longer you keep them, the more they start to rot. Every Friday night, we went to the same place, the Olive Grove, a cozy Italian restaurant tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore. Red checkered tablecloths, candles stuck in wine bottles, quiet music playing through an old speaker that crackled at just the right moments. It was unpretentious, intimate, and ours. That night was no different, or at least it wasn't supposed to be. He was already seated when I arrived, the soft glow of the candle catching the curve of his jaw. When Brian looked up and smiled, that easy, familiar warmth washed over me, the one that used to make the whole week worth it. I sat down, setting my purse beside me. Long day, he asked, reaching across the table, fingers brushing mine. Endless, I said, exhaling a small laugh. But it's Friday, which means carbs, bad wine, and pretending we're not going to check emails until Monday. He grinned, always the planner. I rolled my eyes. Someone has to be. The waiter arrived, took our usual order. The comfort of routine settled in the kind that makes you believe everything is exactly as it should be. The candle flickered, his laughter filled the small space, and for a moment I thought, this is what happiness feels like when it's quiet. Then, somewhere between our appetizer and the first sip of wine, Brian leaned back, eyes glinting with amusement. "Oh, you'll love this," he said. "Something funny happened at work today." I smiled, leaning in. "Go on." I was at the coffee machine with Sarah and Mark. He began taking a slow sip of Pinot Grigio, and Sarah goes, "Brian, you've been practically glowing on Fridays lately. What's your secret? Are you seeing someone?" The question hit me like a spark in dry air. My pulse quickened, not with fear, but anticipation. For months we'd hidden behind whispers and stolen minutes. Maybe finally we were ready to step into the light. My heart lifted in quiet hope. "Oh yeah," I teased. "So what did you tell them?" He smiled, playful, casual, and said I told them nobody. The word slipped out so easily I almost missed it. Nobody. For a moment I thought I misheard. The sounds of the restaurant faded, the laughter, the clinking glasses, until it was just the echo of that word reverberating in my head. "You told them nobody," I asked, my voice steady, though something inside me cracked. He shrugged, still smiling as if it were obvious. "Well, yeah. I mean, come on, it's not exactly something I want to broadcast, you know." Something in my chest went cold. He leaned forward, tone suddenly conspiratorial. "Think about it. Sarah would never let it go. You know how people gossip. It's just easier this way." Easier. The word landed like a blade, clean, sharp, deliberate. I stared at him. The man I had shared late-night secrets with, the one whose hand I held under the table during endless meetings, was now explaining how I was inconvenient. He laughed lightly when he saw my face. "Don't look so serious, Elena. It's not a big deal. You know how people are." No, I didn't. Or maybe I had just forgotten. The candlelight between us flickered, and in it I saw something I hadn't seen before. Not cruelty, not malice, just indifference. The effortless kind that hurts more than hatred ever could. He didn't realize it, but something shifted right then. The soundtrack of our secret, the hum, the laughter, the quiet excitement stopped. The silence that replaced it wasn't peaceful. It was surgical. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just smiled faintly, reached for my glass, and took a long, steady sip. Somewhere between that swallow and the next breath, I decided the woman who walked into this restaurant in love would not be the same one who walked out. And when I didn't look back. The next morning, the world looked exactly the same, which somehow made it worse. The sun still spilled across my apartment floor. My kettle still hissed. My phone still buzzed with useless notifications. But something invisible had shifted, a frequency gone missing, a warmth extinguished. It's strange how one word can ruin your entire memory of a person. Brian hadn't yelled. He hadn't cheated. He'd just said nobody. And somehow that hurt more than anything else could. I kept replaying it in my head. His tone wasn't cruel, not even defensive, just thoughtless. Casual. Like I was a coffee cup he'd misplaced. Like we had never really existed outside those dim corners and private messages. When I finally walked into work that Monday, the office looked normal, too normal. The fluorescent lights buzzed, keyboards clacked, phones rang. Life moved on indifferent. I passed by the coffee machine, the same one where he'd told the joke about me being nobody, and felt a pulse of nausea. I steadied my breathing. He was there already, of course. Brian stood by the printer sleeves rolled up, laughing at something Sarah had said. He looked light, unburdened. When his eyes found mine, the laughter froze just slightly, a glitch only I noticed. Elena he greeted like it was any other morning. Hey. Morning, I said evenly. Just one word. No smile, no warmth. It landed between us like glass. He blinked, probably expecting awkwardness, maybe even a nervous apology. But there was nothing, just my quiet, professional tone. Then I walked past him and sat at my desk. From that moment on, I made silence my strategy. I answered emails. I documented everything. I copied our manager in on every message that involved him. It wasn't vindictive, it was procedure. Every digital trace of him on my phone disappeared by lunchtime. The photos, the messages, the voice notes that once felt like whispered promises gone. Not deleted in anger, deleted in order. It was administrative healing. At lunch, Sarah dropped by my desk. You okay? You seem quieter than usual. I'm fine, I said. And I was, or at least I was becoming fine. There's something oddly liberating about realizing the person you loved saw you as a secret, because then you understand they were never capable of loving you out loud. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and the memories played back in order, like a file I was closing. The laughter, the Friday dinners, his hand brushing mine. Each one lost its warmth when replayed through the lens of that one humiliating truth. He was embarrassed by me. By midweek, the office dynamic began to shift. He tried a few times to start small talk comments about the weather, a shared project, some half-hearted joke about spreadsheets. I replied with short, neutral answers, never meeting his eyes for long. And that's when it happened. The silence began to work. He started second-guessing himself in meetings. His confident voice faltered when he presented. During one report, he misquoted a figure I'd written, and I corrected him calmly in front of the team. Actually, it was 14%, not 11%. My tone wasn't smug, it was surgical, the kind of politeness that leaves bruises. By Friday, word had spread that Brian seemed off lately. Sarah mentioned it over lunch again. He's so distracted these days. You'd think something was wrong at home. I stirred my coffee slowly. Maybe he just needs some quiet. She laughed, not knowing the irony. You'd know about quiet, huh? You've been zen all week. Zen. That was a new one. I liked it. That evening I walked home alone. No olive grove, no ritual. But as I passed the restaurant, I paused for just a second outside the window. Someone else was sitting at our old table, a couple laughing, leaning in close under the same flickering candlelight. I could have felt nostalgic or bitter. Instead, I felt nothing. A beautiful, merciful nothing. The silence I carried wasn't emptiness anymore. It was peace, the kind you earn when you stop begging to be seen. I didn't know it yet, but Brian's silence was about to sound very different. Mine was deliberate. His would be desperate. The following week, the air in the office changed. It wasn't something you could see, but you could feel it, a quiet tension that hummed beneath the fluorescent lights. The same kind of tension that exists right before a storm. Brian was unraveling. At first it was subtle. A wrong number here, a missed deadline there. He'd bump into my desk by accident, linger too long. When dropping off reports, offer awkward smiles that never quite reached his eyes. It was strange watching the man who once seemed unshakable start to falter. Not because of anything I said, but because of everything I didn't. Silence has weight. At first it feels empty, then it becomes heavy enough to crush someone's ego. I wasn't cruel. I didn't avoid him in obvious ways. I greeted him when necessary. I answered his work emails with perfect politeness, always CCing our supervisor just as procedure required. Every message ended with, "Thanks, Elena." Professional, punctual, impenetrable. It drove him insane. By Wednesday, he tried to bring up something personal. "Elena," he said, "catching me near the elevator. Can we talk just for a minute?" I looked up, feigning mild confusion. "About the client brief?" "No, I mean," he hesitated, glancing at the open hallway. "About us." "There is no us, Brian," I said simply. "But if it's a work matter, I'll send you the updated document." The elevator chimed open behind me. I stepped inside without looking back. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, brushing my hair, and caught my own reflection looking different. Lighter, somehow. My eyes were calm, not dull, not bitter, just steady. It was the look of someone who had finally taken back control. In the beginning, I thought ignoring him would feel like punishment, an act of revenge. But it wasn't. It was discipline. A reclamation of energy. He had turned me into a secret, something hidden and small. Now, by doing nothing, I'd become the loudest thing in his world. By Friday, the cracks were showing in public. During the team meeting, Ted asked Brian a routine question about a data projection. He stumbled through the explanation, flipping between spreadsheets, his usual confidence gone. Ted frowned. "Did you double-check these numbers with Elena's team?" Brian blinked, then glanced toward me for backup. I met his eyes briefly, then answered, calm and precise. "Yes, I sent him the verified figures on Wednesday morning. They're in the shared drive." Ted nodded, satisfied. "Thanks, Elena. Let's make sure we stay aligned next time." A faint ripple of tension went through the room. For the rest of the meeting, Brian kept his head down. When it ended, I gathered my laptop and papers, my heartbeat steady, my expression neutral. Inside, there was no gloating, no satisfaction, just the quiet affirmation that I had survived something meant to humiliate me, and I'd done it with grace. That afternoon, I walked past the glass-walled break room and saw Sarah and Mark whispering near the coffee machine. Their voices were low, but I caught fragments. "He's just been off lately. Elena's handling everything alone. It's kind of sad, really." It should have felt vindicating, but it didn't. It just felt inevitable. The truth has a way of resurfacing no matter how much someone tries to bury it. By evening, I was the last one in the office. The city lights flickered outside the windows, distant and indifferent. I shut down my computer, packed my bag, and walked past his empty desk. His chair was pushed in perfectly, but the energy around it was hollow, restless. My phone buzzed once. "Brian, can we please talk just once?" I stared at the message. The dots appeared, then disappeared. No apology, no accountability, just need. Need for closure, validation, attention, all the things he denied me when I was still foolish enough to want them. I didn't reply. Instead, I deleted the message thread entirely. Administrative peace. When I stepped outside, the city air was cool and sharp. For the first time in months, I didn't check my phone once on the walk home. I didn't replay conversations in my head or wonder what I'd done wrong. Because I knew finally I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd just chosen the wrong man to trust with my silence. And soon, the rest of the office would see exactly what that silence could do. The Project Sigma wrap-up party was supposed to be lighthearted, a celebration, not a confrontation. Ted had booked out a long table at the Brass Tap, one of those downtown bars with Edison bulbs, fake brick walls, and the faint smell of spilt beer. Everyone was there laughing too loudly, the kind of cheer that only comes from cheap wine and professional exhaustion. I hadn't planned on staying long. I'd already done. My polite round smiled for photos, clinked glasses, answered a few questions about future projects. Then I'd positioned myself near the end of the table, quietly observing content with soda water and detachment. Brian arrived late. His shirt was rumpled, his smile forced. When his eyes found mine across the room, something flickered hope or maybe guilt. He waved once, uncertain, like a man trying to summon a ghost. I turned away. But ghosts don't disappear just because you stop looking at them. They linger. They follow. 2 hours later, as I was slipping away toward the exit, I heard my name, Elena Waite. He stepped into the narrow hallway between the bar and the restrooms, blocking my path. The light was dimmer there, fitting, I suppose, for what was about to unfold. His cologne hit first, then his expression nervous, drawn. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by something desperate and unguarded. "Please," he said, voice low. "Can we talk? Just 5 minutes." I looked past him toward the bar where Sarah and Mark were laughing. They were close enough to see, maybe even hear if this went sideways. What could we possibly have left to talk about, Brian? He swallowed hard. "I made a mistake. Okay, I panicked that night. I didn't mean what I said. It came out wrong." "Nobody," I repeated evenly. "That's not exactly a phrase you stumble into." He flinched. "I was embarrassed not by you, just, you know how people gossip. I didn't want them to think less of you," I finished for him. "Because you were dating someone from the same cubicle row. How tragic." "Elena," he whispered, eyes pleading. "Don't do this. You have to know how much I care about you." "No," I said, calm, steady. "What I know is that you cared about perception more than you ever cared about me." He reached out his hand, closing around my wrist. "Please. You can't just erase me like this. You can't pretend it meant nothing." I looked down at his fingers, pale against my skin. Slowly, deliberately, I peeled them away one by one until his hand fell uselessly to his side. "You're making a scene," I said quietly. He laughed then, brittle and drunk. "A scene. You think I care about that now? You've already turned everyone against me." "I didn't have to," I replied. "You did that yourself." His face twisted pain, confusion, maybe anger. I said I was sorry. And I said I heard you. I took a step closer, my voice just above a whisper, but sharp enough to cut. "Here's the thing, Brian. Apologies don't fix contempt. They just expose it. You weren't ashamed of dating me. You were ashamed of being seen loving someone who wasn't convenient for your ego." He blinked rapidly, mouth opening, but no words coming out. From the corner of my eye, I saw Sarah pause at the hallway entrance, pretending to look at her phone. She wasn't fooling anyone. The audience was forming just like fate intended. I straightened my blazer. "You should go back out there. They're waiting for you." "Elena, please," he murmured, one last attempt, softer now. "I miss you. I miss us." There was something almost childlike in his tone. I almost pitied him. Almost. But pity was the last kindness I owed. "There is no us," I said. My voice didn't rise, didn't tremble, it just was. "We're coworkers. That's all we ever should have been." The words landed like the verdict. He stepped back as though I'd struck him. His throat worked, but no sound came out. I walked past him toward the bar, the sound of my heels crisp and final against the tile floor. When I reached the table, Sarah glanced up. "Everything okay?" "Just a quick work question," I said lightly, taking a sip of my untouched drink. "All sorted." The conversation resumed, forced laughter, filling the air again. But I could feel him standing at the edge of the crowd, burning with embarrassment. For the first time, the roles had reversed. He was the secret now, the one people whispered about. Before I left, I glanced once more toward the hallway. He was gone. Only a half-empty wineglass remained on the counter where he'd stood. I exhaled slowly. For the first time in months, the silence that followed didn't sting. It sang. 2 nights later, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. The blue glow painted the ceiling, the digital pulse of a ghost that refused to rest. "Brian, I can't sleep. I can't eat. Everyone's looking at me differently now. You've turned them all against me. Was that your plan?" I stared at the message for a long time, the words swimming in and out of focus. Not because they hurt, but because they didn't. There was nothing left in them that could reach me. I turned the phone face down and went back to sleep. The next morning, another one waited. "Brian," I said, I was sorry. "What else do you want from me? Do you want me to beg?" A pause. Then Brian. "Fine. I'm begging. Please, Elena, I can't do this. I need you." I set the phone down beside my coffee cup, opened my laptop, and went about my morning as usual. The emails, the reports, the soft hiss of the kettle, everything in perfect, peaceful order. His words existed on a separate frequency, now like static in another room. By noon, he sent the third and final one. A longer message this time. One that began with apology and ended with venom, the true cycle of guilt. "Brian, you know what, fine. You win. You've always been cold calculated. I tried to love you, but you just turned everything into a control game. Maybe that's all you ever wanted to feel powerful. Enjoy it, Elena. Because you'll die alone with your spreadsheets and your perfect silence. Don't bother replying." I didn't, but not because of pride, because there was nothing left to say. I stared at the message for a full minute, reading it like a case file clinical distant. Then I placed the phone face up, opened my blinds, and let the morning light flood in. The city outside was quiet but alive. Somewhere people were rushing to catch buses, burning their tongues on coffee, starting new mistakes and new beginnings. The world didn't pause for heartbreak. It just shifted slightly and kept spinning. When I finally responded, it wasn't for him. It was for me, the punctuation mark at the end of a story I'd already finished writing. Me. Your words that night didn't break me, Brian. They cleared my vision. You weren't afraid of gossip. You were afraid of being seen. What you want now isn't me. It's the attention of the woman you were embarrassed to love. That woman no longer exists. Do not contact me again outside of work necessities. I hit send. There was no typing indicator, no reply. Just stillness, clean, untroubled, absolute. Then, without hesitation, I deleted our entire thread and removed his contact from my phone. It wasn't an act of anger. It was administrative, a necessary deletion. That evening, I walked through my apartment, the air faintly scented with coffee and linen. No traces of him remained, not in the spaces, not in the memories, not even in the ache I once mistook for love. I poured a glass of water, sat by the window, and looked down at the city lights below. Each one flickered, like a life I didn't have to carry anymore. For the first time in half a year, my heart felt light, spacious, like a room finally cleared of clutter. I realized then that silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the absence of permission, the moment you stop allowing someone else's noise to drown out your own peace. The woman who once lived for the thrill of being someone's secret was gone. In her place sat a woman who knew the power of not explaining herself to anyone. Outside, a car horn blared, laughter echoed from the street, and life continued. I smiled quietly at the noise, because I knew now that I could choose when to let it in. Sometimes silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means everything has already been said, and you're finally free to stop listening.